Your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest today is a very special guest. Her name is Carleigh Bodrug, and she is the founder of PlantYou. She has this wonderful New York Times bestselling book, but she's got another one coming out, and you need to help out a fellow plant-based eater because that's how we make things a New York Times bestseller, by buying them in advance or the first week. It's always great to buy a book anytime. Authors appreciate it, but when you buy them early, it does make a difference. She is going to be making a wonderful recipe, a Dilly Orzo soup from the book. I'm sure you know who she is. She's like pretty much the most well-known person in the plant-based space, and she's so young. She's got like 7 million followers. She's like, I don't know, she's like 20 years old. I don't know how old she is, but she is so down to earth, so genuine. Her recipes are amazing. All of her social media channels are amazing. And today's a special day for me too, because if you watch my show regularly, you know that on March 20th, 2020 was the first time I went live. It was during the pandemic when we were told to shelter in place to create a sense of community and connection. So today starts season 5 of Chef AJ Live, where I have gone live every single day, haven't missed a day in 5 years. And so we're kicking off season 5 with Carleigh. Hey, Carleigh, congratulations on the new book.
Thank you so much. And I will say, if anybody is going to pre-order PlantYou Scrappy Cooking, they should put your new book in their cart as well, because as Chef AJ said, pre-orders, I'm so glad you said that, because I think everybody is like, why is this author telling me to order a book so many months in advance? I mean, mine's out in 2 weeks now, but it really is the biggest indicator of success for a new book. So we are so grateful. We do like the biggest happy dance when we get pre-orders. And Chef AJ has a book coming out in August, right?
Yep, absolutely. What people also don't realize, especially, I mean, if they're not going to buy it, they're not going to buy it whenever. But the thing is it shows like major publishers like yours and other publishers that plant-based books can be very, very successful. And that's the thing, is all of us that do this want more people to eat more plants. And so when you support us that way, it does make a difference. And we appreciate it. And are you giving any bonuses if they buy it a little bit
Uh,
early?
Yeah, we have so many bonuses. I think worth over $200 in digital freebies now. It's called the Scrappy Bundle. So if you go to scrappycookbook.com and you pre-order, you can upload your receipt there from whatever retailer you want to buy it from. And you'll get access to a 2-week healthy meal plan, a vegan cheese making ebook, 101 vegan snack ebook, and even more. So we have really super loaded it. That is how grateful we are for the pre-orders. They just mean the world.
Yeah, and I'm going to make sure that link is visible as well in the chat, in the show notes. Now, I have a little bit older audience probably than you, so maybe there are a few people that are unfamiliar with you. So what is scrappy cooking?
Yeah, scrappy cooking started when I heard this statistic that just really blew me away. And that is that 30 to 40% of the entire US food supply ends up in landfills, which is astonishing if we think about especially the price of groceries, but also our planet. So what people don't realize, they think, okay, 30 to 40% of food goes to waste. That must just decompose in the landfills and everything's fine. But unfortunately, it builds up in landfills. And then as it decomposes, it emits methane gas, which is a really, really powerful greenhouse gas contributing to global warming. And the way I like to put this into perspective is, in school, I was always taught that airline industry, taking too long of showers, that was really bad for the environment. But in reality, food waste is actually creates more emissions than the entire airline industry. And then when we talk about plant-based eating, which is already great for the environment, if you're wasting 30% of your food, it's just crazy, because we can really cut down on that inflation that we've seen in the last maybe 3 to 4 years by reducing our food waste, cutting out that 30% that we're throwing out. So I've been really passionate about that. I threw up an orange peel candy recipe one day. It went crazy viral, and that's how Scrappy Cooking was born. So I've done about 100 episodes since, and now written a cookbook that is really focused on helping people not only eat whole food plant-based, but also reduce their food waste through really simple, practical recipes that use parts of the plant that you might not normally eat, like broccoli stalks, as well as really customizable recipes so that you don't have to go and buy a bunch of new things to make a recipe. You can really shop from your fridge and pantry, which is the whole goal.
This is such a great idea. And ultimately, it's not only going to reduce food waste, but it'll save people money.
Yes, which is a huge one. I think the average is we, as families, we waste around $1,600 per year on food by throwing it away, which is not a small amount of money. And you can save, I think, hundreds of dollars per month by being really more intentional about not only the food you're bringing into your home, but how you prepare it, and being more mindful and getting sort of empowered in your cooking to make these swaps, which is what I want. And I'm sure you can relate to this as your years as a recipe creator. You really want to empower people to learn how to cook with plants and make these swaps, because plant-based cooking is the best. It's low stakes. You can almost always fix something. You can almost always make swaps. You're not worried about like salmonella on your countertop from the chicken. It's plants, and that's the best part.
That's amazing. How do you get these ideas like to make things out of date pits? I mean, who would think about that?
Yeah, so a lot of them come from getting like dates. I pick up a pack of dates, maybe I'm making a dessert, and then I think about, okay, what is in this plant that we normally throw away? And then I start Googling and saying, okay, is this edible? Because that's number one. I would never want to lead people into a position where they're eating something that's not edible, but most of the time it is. And then I start recipe testing. So a great example again is if you're buying broccoli every week, which I'm sure a lot of your audiences are big broccoli fans, and you're paying for it by weight, and then you're throwing half of it out from the stalk, which contains a lot of sulforaphane, by the way, which is that really great anti-cancer compound. There's so many things you can do with it. You can just peel it and throw it into stir fries. You can chop it into really thin matchsticks and put it into summer rolls. Shred it into salads. Like there's just so many ways to use scraps, radish tops, beet greens. Never throw them out. You can blend them up into a pesto. There's just so many ways to use these things, and oftentimes they're super nutrient dense.
It's interesting because when I do buy fresh beets, like for example at Whole Foods, I love the stems of them. I mean, they're delicious, and they always say to me at the register, "Here, you want me to take these and throw these out for you?" And I'm like, "No, I actually want this more than I want the beet."
Exactly, exactly. They have a really great taste. You can even just chop them into salads. In my book, I have a beet green chip recipe. So it's similar to kale chips. Toss them in a little apple cider vinegar and nutritional yeast. Pop them in the oven, and they're so delicious.
Nice. What is your culinary background? You're such a creative recipe developer.
No culinary background. Really just got into it because I went plant-based around 2015. The World Health Organization had come out with this huge news that red and processed meat were now classed as group 2 and group 1 carcinogens. My dad's a colon cancer survivor, cancer very prevalent in my family, and decided I wanted to go plant-based. Had no prior cooking experience. All of my college friends laugh at me now because I came to university stocked with a freezer full of mini pizzas and tater tots. Was so the opposite, and really started recording my journey in 2015 as I went plant-based. And it was more of like let's document somebody going from ground zero, like having no experience, to learning the ropes of a vegan diet, which is what inspired my first cookbook. So yeah, I've had to deal with a lot of imposter syndrome over the years. I mean, when I first cookbook was being published, I remember I was petrified at the thought that all of these people were going to be making my recipes, but it worked out. And now I think of it as it's kind of my superpower. If you see these recipes, I promise you can make them. If I can make them, you can make them. No professional chef. I'm a regular girl just cooking in her kitchen.
Nice. You are so you have millions of followers all across various platforms. Is there one that you favor that you like the most to engage with?
I think Instagram, it's where I started my page, and I just have so many followers there that have been following me probably for 5, 6 years. So it's just incredible to engage with people when they've seen you on your personal journey for years, and you recognize the names and see their journeys and hear their stories. So that's like my number one that I like the most. How about you?
Nice. Well, this one, YouTube, because that's where mine most are. But we are streaming on Instagram, so hopefully we'll be able to see that there as well. I'm trying to figure out how to tag you right now, but very
Oh,
nice. People see your beautiful, I guess you call them reels or shorts, but they don't realize even though it might take them 30 or 60 seconds to watch it, it doesn't take you 30 or 60 seconds to create them.
oh no. I usually can be anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to film. And that doesn't account for the recipe testing that goes on prior, right? So I'll usually make something for dinner the week before when I'm recipe testing it. And then the following week, I'll film it. And then the editing. So the editing takes hours as well. So I would say every recipe video that I post probably on average takes 8 to 10 hours from.
That's mind blowing, when you think about it. Yeah. I mean, think about it, like a movie that's 2 hours can take a whole year to make. So why wouldn't it be that way to get the kind of quality that you get? People don't realize what goes on behind the scenes. I'm curious because you're so young and you became plant-based younger than a lot of people. Did you have any inspirations in the plant-based world? Because there wasn't really a lot of young people to look up to, really, I don't think.
Yeah, I think I followed you. I really loved the Esselstyn books and Michael Greger. Those were all kind of the people that how I got into really whole food plant-based eating from the start, which I'm thankful for because I think a lot of people make the mistake when they go vegan, if they're inspired from an animal perspective, they won't necessarily pursue the health side. So I was really lucky that the people that I kind of found from the get-go were from the whole food plant-based space. And those were really the biggest inspiration there.
That's great because you're inspiring a whole generation more of plant eaters. Do you hear stories from some of your fans and followers, how they changed their diet in a favorable or more plant-based or even exclusively plant-based way?
Yeah, I do. And one of the coolest things was last year, I think during COVID was when my platform really kind of erupted. And last year I went to this expo called Planted Expo, and it's in Toronto, which is, I'm from Ontario. And I went to it and I didn't know what to expect, but the amount of people who came up to me and just communicated how much my first book had impacted their lives, that they had gotten off type 2 diabetes medication, that their blood pressure had lowered, that they'd lost weight. That's when I was like, wow, I had no idea that there was like this tangible impact happening from my recipes. And I think you'll probably agree with this because you're churning out books too. But the really cool thing about books is I think people like to cook from them sometimes even more than a blog, and it creates more consistency because you're referencing the same recipes from an author. So if those recipes are really helpful, it's going to benefit you. And so that really inspired me when I just saw the impact to write my second book. And I wanted a lot of people. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of people might assume that the Scrappy cookbook is just like a booklet full of scraps. That's not what it is. It's really a build on my first book. So the recipes might be like a little more, I don't know, fancy, but they're very simple, they're very delicious, and they're very healthy. Like we've packed a ton of plants into them. Almost all recipes are oil-free or oil-free optional. We've really like made sure we're packing as many vegetables as we can into each of them because I wanted to continue kind of the legacy of helping people eat more plants.
Yeah, that is so cool. And I'm guessing I haven't seen your book yet. We've ordered it, of course. But what I really loved about your first book, well, a lot of things. I love that it lays flat, but I love this.
Oh yeah,
all that and so good.
Second, yeah, we could not do away with this. So it's really interesting. I just got so many messages that people like this format, and I don't know what it is. So these are just, if people are tuning in, these are the ingredients on the top and then the finished dish on the bottom. But I think it shows you at a glance what you need for your recipes, and it just makes it so much easier. And I've heard a lot from people with kids. Kids love looking through the book and then cooking from it, which is something totally unexpected. I don't have kids of my own, so I had no idea. And then also people who are neurodivergent, so ADHD, autism. I get totally unexpected, but I get a lot of messages from people who fall in that group, and it's just incredible. It makes me so happy that this can be of value to people. So I definitely continued, and I would say the pictures are even prettier in the second book. I was able to hire an incredible photographer this time. I shot the first one myself, which allowed me to focus more on the recipes. And then additionally, for my second one, I was able to hire a recipe tester, which was invaluable because my first, I did not. And that created a lot of anxiety when the book was coming out, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, that is really cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're going to make it, Carleigh. So guys, wherever you're watching this, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, just order it now. You know you want it. You know it's going to be great. And this is going to help her become a second-time New York Times bestseller. And you know, your book is still so popular, your first one. Every time we go into Barnes and Noble, it's like at the front of the store, you know?
Oh, that makes me so happy.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, like that's amazing. I mean, it's because you're really doing a lot for the plant-based community. It's not just for you. I mean, it helps all of us because people can see how delicious plants are, not just how healthy they are, and how it's really easy to make.
Exactly. I think plant-based eating is when I fell in love with cooking because like I said, the stakes are low. You can have fun with it. If you screw it up, you can fix it. It's just the best.
Absolutely. Well, of all your current recipes, which one has been the most popular among your fans and followers?
That's a good question. I made a marry me pasta, which is this incredible rosé pasta dish. You can either use like sunflower cream or cashew cream and tomato paste to make like a rosé sauce with pasta. I love to serve it with crispy tofu. You can look that up on my blog. I have a rendition of it in here, and it's vodka pasta, but we use lemon juice in place of vodka. And one cool thing to save water, and I use this tip now all the time, is I'll cook the pasta, but I'll add the broccoli right into the pot and it blanches the broccoli. So you just like add your broccoli in about 2 minutes before your pasta is done cooking, and then you can just drain it all. You can do the same thing with peas rather than sauteing everything in a separate pan. So that's one that people love pasta. What's your most famous, like you have done so many recipes over the years?
What I hear about a lot is the disappearing lasagna and the stuffed mushrooms. I hear about those a lot. But when the dessert cookbook comes out, we're going to have some new favorites like the peanut butter chocolate cheesecake. And thank you for endorsing my book, by the way. I appreciate that.
Peanut butter and chocolate is my favorite thing in the entire world. So I will be 100% making that. And I'm so, so excited.
Oh, thank you. Now you have in front of you, I don't know if it's the camera angle or if that's just some big pot.
Oh, it's a big pot.
Okay.
We're making soup. So, and I'm sure it's beautiful and sunny where you are, but it is a blizzard outside where I am. So I thought, what do I feel like? I'm going to make my Dilly Orzo soup today. And this is really fun. What inspired this recipe is I kept seeing and I made a dill potato soup one time and it was really delicious. But I thought, is there something lighter and brothy that we can do with dill? And this is a great way to use up pickle juice. So a lot of people get to the end of their pickles and then they throw away their pickle juice, or if they're a marathoner, maybe they'll drink it. But we have pickle juice straight into this recipe, and I promise you, you are going to love it. So do you want me to get started?
I absolutely do, but you just made me think of something when you said pickle juice. I love to eat sauerkraut. And what do I do with all the juice from the sauerkraut?
Sauerkraut juice is fantastic. So similar to pickle juice, you could add it to salad dressings. So if you're making a really kind of vinaigrette salad dressing, what I love lately is taking like soy yogurt and then adding sauerkraut juice or pickle juice and then herbs and spices, and that's really delicious. The other thing you can do is you can ferment, I'm just gonna add a little bit of broth to this pan. You can ferment cheese. So for example, if you're making a cashew cheese, you blend up cashews with water, salt, and a little bit of that sauerkraut juice, because that sauerkraut contains probiotics. Over days, if you let it sit in a warm spot, it will create like a fermented vegan cheese. So
It's so cool. Hey, we have such a nice comment from one of your fans named Shanice, and she said, I gave a copy of PlantYou to each of my 7 closest girlfriends for Christmas, along with a loaf from the book. And it was a huge hit. So why don't you do the same thing for Easter? Order 7 of the new book right now, make a recipe, and you can do the same thing because we got a holiday coming up pretty soon.
If anyone owns my first book, I just am so confident you're going to like the second one even more. The recipes are just up leveled. They're so good. But thank you. That's so sweet. Okay, so I've added a little bit of 1 to 2 tablespoons of vegetable broth. We're sauteing in broth. You can use oil if you're not oil free. And I'm adding 1 onion. The book calls for yellow onion. I had red onion. It's going to be okay. So we're just going to add that to the pot. Give that a little saute until the onion becomes translucent. At some point, I will bring you over so we can see what the soup looks like.
What kind of pot is that?
You know, I get asked about this pot all the time. And It's just from, you have Marshalls in the
Yeah.
US?
Mm-hmm.
It's from like a Marshalls. It is not a fancy pot, but I like to use it for cooking demos. I like lately cooking with stainless steel, but my stainless steel pot was dirty. But it's hard to cook. I will say it's hard to cook in stainless without oil. What do you usually cook with?
Stainless steel, and I do that method where you have the pan really hot at first, and then you have the little water kind of going in a bead. That seems to work. The stainless steel
Uh,
cookware for me. I also have a pot that I know not everybody likes coated, and I don't think it's Teflon. I've had it for 30 years though, so I'm assuming it's safe. Made by Pampered Chef, and it's coated with hard anodized steel. And I know that even like Dr. McDougall uses or Mary uses a scan pan. I don't worry about it too much. I always tell people get the biggest and the best that you can afford. And yours is big for sure.
yeah, I love like making, and this is a huge tip to reduce food waste too, is I love meal prepping and making like a lot at once. My husband eats so much, so there's never like I'm never making a 2 serving recipe. I always like to make 4 to 6 so that you have lunch the next day. I mean, it's always better to have something prepped than heading in the drive-through if you can avoid it. I'm just adding 4 cloves of minced garlic here.
Speaking of your husband, you didn't have one last time you were on the show, but I looked at your photos. Man, I mean, you look beautiful. The wedding looked incredible.
Yeah, I was super lucky. My wedding was canceled due to COVID twice. And then we finally had a window of opportunity this summer, and it was at my parents' place, and it was just everything that we could have imagined. But my husband and I, now husband, have been together since 2012, so 11 or 12 years.
Wow.
Watching this, I'm sure he knows. So yeah, long time. It was a long time coming. I'm grating a whole carrot into the soup. And again, I don't bother peeling. I just wash them. If you're worried about like pesticides or whichever else, you can buy organic, or you can give a vinegar or water soak. And one tip for people who are cooking, I always like to have a bowl, and I learned this from Rachael Ray years ago, but I always like to have a bowl when I'm cooking and I put my scraps in it. So I already have onion and garlic peels in it. And what I'll do is I'll put those in a freezer bag and then put it in the freezer until it's full. And I have a recipe for this in my book. Once it's full, you can make like your own vegetable broth from the scraps. That's really nutrient dense. I like to call it almost like a vegan foam broth.
What's the weirdest ingredient that you used in Scrappy cooking?
Um, one that immediately comes to mind is banana peel bacon. So that is one that a lot of people are going to be afraid of, but it is so good. So basically, you take banana peels, you scoop out like kind of the inner flesh, and then you're just left with the outside, and then you marinate in soy sauce, beautiful soy sauce, paprika marinade, and then you bake it, and it becomes very bacon-like. And if you don't want to make banana peel bacon, like truly, I don't blame you. You can, I have a second recipe that's like on the same page for oyster mushroom bacon, and it uses the exact same marinating method. So I made sure that we're covered on both angles, but that's definitely the one that's probably the strangest. And then if you're looking for a way to use banana peels, you can also soak them in water, and it creates a really great plant fertilizer. So if you're looking to water your plants and want some water that is like really rich in vitamins, that's one way to use up those banana peels.
Yeah, that I don't think people really would think about them as being edible even.
Yeah, they are completely edible. And in some countries, people eat the bananas with the peel, which is wild. I am adding a teaspoon of dried parsley. So we've got carrot, grated carrot, onion, garlic. Everything's looking really good here. And now we're going to go in with a cup of pickle juice. So I've got my pickle juice right here, and I have a measuring cup.
Nice comment from Nicole. I absolutely love your first book. I had to buy a second copy to show people because my original copy is so worn out. I cook from it every day and absolutely love every recipe. Looking forward to the new book. Thank you so much, Nicole. And Carla says, I have made 3 recipes from her first book, all great, especially the lasagna.
Oh, yes, the lasagna is very popular. I'm now adding 6 cups of vegetable broth. You can use store-bought, you can use bouillon, or you can use homemade. I have a homemade one in the, and I have a homemade one also that is made using corn cobs, which is really good. It makes like a really, almost like a vegan chicken broth. And
That's so cool.
now we're going to, I've got 3 pickles here. And we're actually going to grate the pickles into the soup. So I do this series on Instagram, which inspired quite a few of the recipes. And I haven't talked about this on online, but it inspired quite a few of the recipes in this book. And it's called Sneaky Veggies. So I love to my whole goal when I'm recipe creating is just to pack in as much vegetables as I can. And one easy way to do this when you're creating soups or stews is like grating vegetables right in. It makes they disappear, but they add flavor, they add texture. They still have a lot of the fiber intact. So, and it's going to create volume in your food, which I know is something you talk about a lot.
I'm like Jesse, I need a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that was one thing when I went plant-based that I always say is one of the biggest benefits of a whole food plant-based diet is that I'm someone who loves food and I love to eat. And if you're someone who loves food and you love to eat, a whole food plant-based diet is the ticket because you can have such large serving sizes because plants are not a lot of calories, in the whole form.
That's the best thing about it. One of the best things. And of course, helping save the planet, animals, and your own health aren't bad reasons either.
It's a win-win-win. One more pickle here. I'm making quite the mess.
How's King Tut?
King Tut is still kicking. He's around here somewhere. He's getting quite old. So he's probably around 12 years old now. And we rescued a puppy this year named Peach. And Tut doesn't really like Peach. So that's been interesting. Peach loves Tut, but Tut isn't super thrilled about Peach. Although they're finding their way. So we got Peach a few months ago from a rescue. Puppy mill had shut down near our house. And yeah, that's been a lot of fun, but it's funny to see their dynamic because they're always kind of warring a bit. Okay.
Scrappy is the name of a very famous dog. Are you're old enough to remember Scooby-Doo?
Yeah, I watched Scooby-Doo, but I haven't heard that there was a dog named Scrappy.
Yeah, so he had a nephew that was kind of like irascible that was on some of the episodes, and his name was Scrappy Doo. And your book is Scrappy Cooking. So
that's funny.
Very cool.
I know we thought about naming the dog Scrappy, but I felt like maybe it would look like I was naming my dog as a promotional tool, which I did not want to do. I've got a can of drained and rinsed white beans here. I've been really trying to eat more beans because they're so good for you. So a lot of the recipes in the book do have beans. I'm going to chop up some fresh dill and that's going to go in the soup as well. And this is just coming to a boil, and then I'm going to add orzo. What's your favorite recipe from your new book?
Oh, God. Sometimes it's the simplest ones that I love the most, but I think that is a tough question because there's almost 200 recipes. Okay, I love the apple pie that won't make you die. And you know what I do, and you'll love this. When there's leftover, I turn it into a milkshake.
You blend it up into a milkshake?
Yeah, it's like mind blowing. So I used to volunteer teaching arts and crafts at this senior center. And after the shift, I would go visit this lady in her home to visit her dog, and her husband was still working. He'd come home from work and he'd always eat a big piece of dessert. Maybe it was a piece of chocolate cake. Maybe it was a piece of pie. But instead of having a glass of milk with it, he would just pour the milk in the bowl because he said, well, it's just easier. And then I thought, well, if you do that, why not make a milkshake? And so when I'm down to the last piece of whatever, and there's not enough for each of us, what I do is I blend it with some almond milk with some ice, and then I have apple pie milkshake, I have pumpkin pie milkshake, I have German chocolate cake milkshake, I have carrot cake milkshake. So I'm kind of repurposing, you know?
One time I posted, I have a wacky cake recipe, and it's actually, I made it into the book, but I exchanged the oil for aquafaba. I don't know if you've ever done that in cake
That is
recipes.
so cool. Whoever invented that? That's amazing.
I don't know, but like aquafaba, I like to say is like liquid gold. Like it can just do so many different things. I like to use it for breading tofu. Um, but anyways, I once posted a recipe with a wacky cake, and I said, and if you have leftover cake, you can make cake pops. And I have not let it down to this day. People are like, whoever has leftover cake, but that's okay. So beware if you post the leftover apple pie milkshake, you will get roasted in a loving way, I'm sure, by your audience.
That's funny.
I'm just bringing this soup to a boil. That's what's happening right now. It smells amazing in here. If you're a fan of dill, it's just the best. And today I'm going to be using orzo. You can use rice in this soup if you're gluten-free or if you're looking for something that's not pasta. So super versatile. And one of my favorite hacks to make soups creamy, there's a couple of hacks to make soups creamy, but I like to add a few tablespoons of tahini. I'm a huge tahini fan. If you are looking for like a lower fat option, what I see a lot of people do, and I've done myself with tomato soup to make it creamy, have a recipe in my new book, is to roast potatoes and then blend them into a soup.
Yep.
I'm sure you've done. And it makes it like so creamy with basically 0 grams of fat. So just amazing.
Yukon Golds especially, you think there's cream in the soup when you use them.
Yeah, it's so amazing. So good.
Yep. Susan, who's watching live on Facebook, says, my sister, daughter, and I love her book and ordered her new one and can't wait to get it. Thank you. And make sure you click the link in the show notes because you can get some great bonuses.
Yes, and the bonuses, I don't know if you've put out your fair share of cookbooks. It's so hard because your cookbook is it's being sold at all different retailers, right, guys? So it's being sold at Barnes and Noble, it's being sold at your local bookshop, it's being sold on Amazon. And I wish there was a way when you pressed and bought the book that those freebies would go to you automatically. But because there's so many different retailers who are selling the book, and I don't have a preference where you buy, local is awesome, but if not, Amazon works. I can't send the freebies directly to you, so you do have to go back to the scrappycookbook.com website, take a screenshot of your receipt and just upload it, and you will immediately be sent the freebies. If you have any issue, you can also email support@plantyou.com and you'll be good to go.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. So just make sure wherever you buy it, save that receipt. Same thing with my book. Same thing with every book, because most of us do something like that.
Do you have freebies lined up for your book?
Yes, and they're going to be worth, I know this is going to sound crazy, over $1,000. That's what all year is what I'm working on, is creating such an irresistible bonus that they have to buy during that critical period. So do you do any in-person book signings in Canada?
Yes, so I'm actually going to be in Toronto this Sunday at Planted Expo. Scrappy will not be there, although I'm going to bring one copy to show people what it looks like, but it's not out until April 2nd, which is the following week. But I am available Toronto on Sunday. I speak right after Dr. Michael Greger, which I'm thanking my lucky stars for, because I'm sure he'll draw a crowd and then maybe they'll just stick around to watch me.
Oh, I think they will. Yeah.
I get so nervous for in-person events. I like just gives me the heebie-jeebies thinking of no one showing up. But so I'm going to be there. I think it's 11:30 on Sunday in Toronto. It's at the EnterCare Center, and it's this amazing expo full of plant-based exhibitors. There's Robert Cheek going, Chuck from the Exam Room podcast. All of us speak on Sunday, and Michael Greger, I believe, is at 10:30. So you're not going to want to miss that if you're in the Toronto area. I'm going to all the planted expos. So there's one as well in Seattle in mid-April. It's, I think, April 21st, April 22nd. Again, I'm lined up on the Sunday. And then in Vancouver in June, the first weekend of June. So I'm doing all of those. I will be doing some signings locally in Barrie and Toronto at Indigo. If you're Canadian, you know what Indigo is. It's basically our Barnes and Noble. And then we'll see where else I am taken. I am heading back out to California to do some of those podcasts that I missed previously in mid-April. So we'll see.
What part of California?
LA?
Are you doing Rich Roll?
I wish. I cannot.
I know he doesn't answer me anymore either.
No, because he has evaded me. I am sure, I am positive he just gets inundated, so there are no hard feelings, but I wish I was doing ritual. I mean, maybe one day, but not right now. But yeah, I feel like having one of the top health and wellness podcasts in the world. He probably gets around 100, if not more, pitches per day. So there's no hard feelings there. And I'm a huge fan of his podcast. But I am going to go on the Darren Olian show and a couple of others. So super grateful for that.
That sounds great. That sounds great.
Do you think you'll pop back on? You've been on Ritual before.
Twice, but I mean, he's not. He did endorse my book, but he's not answering me either. But Dr. Goldhammer just got on for a second time, and that's one of his highest rated ones. But he's wonderful, and you know, you never know. So, Rich, if you're watching, which I know you're not, please have both of us on again.
The other thing I have trouble booking is TV in the US, like GMA and Today's Show. I feel like when you're a vegan author, not only is it hard to book these things as like a normal cook, the vegan author becomes ever more difficult. So, I mean, if anybody's a producer at Good Morning America, Kelly and Mark, Today's Show, I'm ready. But it's challenging, and the rejection when you're doing a book, some people don't realize, but you're just like, you might have a publicist, or it's you and your team pitching all day long, and you receive so much rejection, and it's just like, oh, you have to kind of get thick skin. And I'm used to it from my first book, but it's still kind of beats you down a bit.
You're basically talking about the life of anyone that's ever attempted anything in show business. And now I think social media is like show business, you know. And what do you think about like the current trend of not everybody, but so many people going on these like drugs like Ozempic?
Oh my goodness. I think that we need more information. I mean, there's people going on Ozempic and they're losing a bunch of weight, but what does that look like 5 years from now? It's scary to think, right? Like, what are the long-term side effects? Do you have to be on the drug for life? Because I don't know enough about it, but I did hear once you go off of it that you struggle with the same issues that you did before. So I think in some cases, it's probably a wonderful thing for people who really struggle and have made dietary shifts and there isn't a solution. But I hope that people aren't using it as a default quick fix, because then I think that we're in dangerous territory where you might lose weight and then gain it back, right? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, my concern is that they don't know enough about it yet. Because you remember fen-phen? I mean, everybody thought that was safe until it wasn't, and they found out it was creating heart-lung defects. I don't know what the future is going to hold for the people that are on this. But like you say, it's the same thing. They have to stay on it forever. It's expensive. And I'm hearing stories now how it completely, with some people, just kind of stops their digestion. And I don't know. I worry about the people that are taking it long. But what's, you know, I don't know. And what are they eating? You know, they're eating something, but are they using it to eat your food, or are they using it to continue eating the food that made them overweight in the first place, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And hopefully, I mean, I hope that Ozempic is this incredible drug that has no side effects and whichever else, but you just have to wonder. And I mean, these stories are now coming out, right? So I think if I was in that circumstance, I don't know. I think I would try and exhaust the dietary route first, right? Because and when we think about lifestyle associated diseases like cancer, Ozempic is not solving that if you're not changing your diet from being like the standard American diet with a lot of meat and dairy to a plant-based one. If you're not making that shift, you're not really reducing your risk of those lifestyle diseases in a dramatic way if you continue to eat those foods, even though you're on this weight control drug, right? So it does concern me in that thought. I am adding half a cup of Orzo. If you're making this, I mean, you can have the book in just under 12 days, but rice is also an option. And Orzo will cook up and make more of an impact in the soup than you think. It smells so good. I'm adding a bit of turmeric for color and black pepper. So whenever I cook with turmeric, I like to add black pepper because it releases the compound curcumin, which is really anti-inflammatory. And then our tahini, which is going to make this soup creamy.
Do you ever use a pressure cooker, Carleigh?
You know, I think I would if I wasn't a food blogger, but I like to make my recipes as accessible as possible from somebody who just does a stovetop. So I don't typically cook with a pressure cooker because I'm always recipe testing, but I think they're amazing. I think they're particularly amazing for making soups and stews really quickly. They're amazing if you're somebody who buys dried beans and cooks them. So I'm a fan, but I don't typically cook from them. This is the best tahini, by the way. I don't know if you guys have it in the US, but it pours right out. I can't stand when nut butters are all hard.
Yeah, they've got the oil on the top and then they're hard on the bottom. So how do you use that? Was it fun being on Rachael Ray? Now, did you do that in person or was it still when things were virtual?
Still when things were virtual. So I was on twice and it was amazing. I was so grateful to be on Rachael Ray. The team there was so nice. Have no notes. They were just wonderful. And yeah, unfortunately, her show got, I don't know if it's canceled or just run its course. I think she's starting a new network of some kind, but it is no longer. So no option to go back on there this book. This is basically done, guys. It smells incredible. The orzo is just going to cook for 10 minutes and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's all finished up. But
nice. I'm guessing that the answer is probably no to this one if you're not using an Instant Pot regularly, but do you have or have you used an air fryer?
Yes, I do have an air fryer, but I don't typically post air fryer recipes for the same reason, but we use an air fryer a lot in my home. So this is my stove back here, very dated. I need a new stove. We're planning on moving, so I'm like not renovating my kitchen, but I'm tempted to. And I have an air fryer, but it's one of those pull down stainless steel air fryers from Ninja. So it's not one of the ones where you pull out and it's like the non-stick. It's more like an oven, so you can fit the whole thing. I make tofu in it almost every night. So good. But yeah.
Somebody's asking if you could please say the name of the tahini again.
This is Cedar Phonetica. Basically, you have to go into the ethnic aisle of your grocery store. And if you see a container like this, that is like tall and whatever else, it is going to be better than the tahini you're buying in the glass jars that is really hard. This is like tahini, I think that is, I don't know. It's way better. It just pours. It's so good for salad dressings too, because it does pour.
You know, one of the things I want to mention about your book, I don't have the hard copy yet, but you sent me a virtual copy. Guys, please order it and order it now. It's really cool because it's not just recipes. You actually have a section where you talk about how people can take food scraps and then grow more food from food scraps.
Yeah, I'll show you the section in the book. Have you ever grown lentils or sprouted lentils?
Most of my life, I lived in an apartment. I didn't grow anything, you know?
Sprouting lentils is really easy. I also have a recipe for that too, but this is how you can regrow your food scraps. So we like took pictures of regrowing your food scraps. And I mean, I live in Canada, so you just put these on your, by your window and it's really cool. And the other part I want to talk about the book is that, give me a sec. I love this part about the book is I created this index for commonly wasted food. It's called a Got This, Make That index. And it lists all the recipes where you can use up commonly wasted foods with this like visual icon. So if you're somebody who's like, okay, I have some tomatoes, what can I do with them? I've got all the recipes listed there. And then not only that, but one moment. I also have about 20 recipes that have this Kitchen Raid badge on them. So it's this badge right here. And what that means is that the produce in the recipe is really interchangeable. So I'll give an example of a recipe. That's a Kitchen Raid. And these are great recipes. These are like great base recipes where you can use whatever you have on hand. So this is a great example. This is a whatever sheet pan soup. And basically you can use like any squash, sweet potato, pumpkin, and it lists all the vegetables that you can use and interchange. So like I said, kind of at the beginning of this live, is like my goal is to really equip people so that they feel more confident in the kitchen to make their own substitutions.
You know, the date seed coffee, that kind of blew my mind because a lot of times I'll buy dates pitted just because it's easier. And I'm thinking, oh boy, maybe I should get pitted, dates with pits just so I can try that recipe.
Yeah, it's really awesome and it tastes amazing. You need a good coffee grinder to do it. Or you can use like a porter and mestle. I can never pronounce that.
Mortar and pestle.
Yeah, what you said. You can use that for them and grind them up, and then you just make coffee how you regularly would. And it's actually quite a popular recipe in the Middle East. And really good, no caffeine if you're a coffee drinker, and tastes delicious. So if you're someone who eats a lot of dates, which I know you make a lot of desserts with dates.
Absolutely. But now I got to get the pits. That sounds amazing. And like you say, no caffeine. You also have a recipe for a balsamic glaze. And I think that's great because not everybody wants to pay for, I have a brand I love and I'd love to send it to you. I think he's shipping to Canada now because you get 2 free bottles for being on the show. And I think they're finally starting to ship to Canada, but it's called California Balsamic and it is a little pricier, but with your recipe, they could buy any kind of balsamic vinegar.
Yeah, what a lot of people, this was a suggestion from my editor because I love finishing some dishes with a balsamic glaze. I have like a cabbage shake recipe in the book where I finish it with balsamic glaze. I love salads with balsamic glaze. And my editor's like, well, where do you get a balsamic glaze from? I'm like, you can just make it. So basically, all you have to do to make your own balsamic glaze is boil down balsamic vinegar and it becomes thick over time as the water evaporates, and then you can make your own glaze with it. And
Yep.
it makes everything, I find it makes everything like restaurant quality.
Yep, absolutely. And you even have a recipe for homemade vanilla extract. And you have a lot of the non-dairy type milks that you show. And what's nice is you don't need like an expensive dedicated milk maker to make them.
Yeah, one of my favorite ways to make plant-based milk, and this was like life-changing for me, and I do it whenever I'm out of plant-based milk, is you can just blend water with your favorite nut butters. So if you have cashew butter, peanut butter, almond butter is the most popular. You just take a couple tablespoons of almond butter and a whole bunch of water and blend it up, and you've got your own healthy, if your almond butter has no additives, it's just one ingredient, almond milk. So if you're ever out of almond milk, you're wanting to have cereal or oatmeal or milk in your tea, you can just make your own in literally 2 minutes, and there's none of the straining involved. Although I do have an oat milk recipe in the book, which is like does the whole straining thing, and then I repurposed the pulp for chickpea blondies. And you don't need oat pulp. It's just like if you want to use it, you can use it. If you don't, there's an alternative. And the chickpea blondies are just so delicious. One of my favorite recipes.
The one that I really want to make is the sticky date pudding.
Yeah, my sister actually. So when I started recipe testing for Scrappy, it was just a very tumultuous time in life. My sister left her job, and I ended up hiring her full time.
Yeah,
So
you said she was a veterinary technician.
Yeah, vet technician.
That's
And
so cool.
yeah. So I ended up hiring her full time. So she's now on maternity leave. She got pregnant while she was working for me, which was great. We now have my niece Mackenzie, first niece in the family, and she really was a huge help. I was so lucky for this book to have such great support, because writing a book is, as you know, just like an incredible amount of blood, sweat, and tears. So I was super lucky.
Yep. Marley wants to know the chickpeas blondie in the new book.
Yes, in the new book, I'm going to show you them because I just made them. They're so good. And again, all of the recipes, like even when I use scraps, say I use juice pulp or oat pulp, I provide an alternative so you don't have to create the scrap to use, which was important to me.
You even have a recipe for repurposing the rind of the watermelon.
Yeah, pickled watermelon rinds.
Crazy. Uh, Moose on the loose. That's like, sounds like a really fun recipe.
That's using aquafaba, like we were talking about earlier. When you have aquafaba, which is liquid from the can of chickpeas, you can add cream of tartar and then whip it up using a hand whisk or a countertop mixer, and it will become like a meringue. And then you add melted dark chocolate. You can add a sweetener if you want. If I'm using like 60 to 70% chocolate, I don't bother. I really like a rich chocolate taste. And you pour that in, then you mix it around, refrigerate it, makes it a delicious chocolate mousse.
Yeah. You even talk about ways to freeze your scraps.
Yes. So one moment. Those are the chickpea blondies, one of my favorite recipes in the book. So good. We make them all the time. Yes, freezing your scraps. So I always say, like, there's low hanging fruit to reducing food waste. Number one is meal planning. So writing down a list on Sunday, what you plan to eat for a week, making a corresponding shopping list, shopping your fridge and pantry before you head to the grocery store. If the food is never in your house, you don't have an opportunity to waste it. Once you get the food into your house, it's always good to prep it and make it more accessible. If in the by the end of the week you haven't used like that spinach in the back of your fridge or whichever else, your freezer is now your best friend before your food generates mold, which I am not a proponent of eating mold. If it's gotten to the moldy state, it's time to go. But before that, you know, your spinach is just wilting a bit. You don't want it in a fresh salad. What I like to do is blend it with some coconut water, pour it into an ice cube tray, and put it in your freezer. And now you've got smoothie cubes. If you're somebody who drinks smoothies, you can add those to add some nutrients, spinach to your smoothies. You can do the same thing with just about any green. And then the other thing I like to tell people, if you're living on your own and you buy like a box of berries that you can't finish in a week or frozen or fruit, buy frozen. Frozen fruit and vegetables are incredible. A lot of people, there's a stigma around them that they're not as healthy as the fresh food, and it's wrong, especially if you're live in a place like Canada, where like you look at all of our fresh fruit, it's shipped in from Mexico, which is fine, but the problem is it's been sitting on trucks for days. Whereas the frozen stuff has been harvested and then frozen almost immediately. So it is often more nutrient dense than the fresh fruit and vegetables that you get in the off season. So something to consider to reduce your food waste is definitely investing in frozen food.
Nice. That's great. So do you like to serve soup by itself as a meal, as a first course, put it over something?
I will eat soup as a meal all year round, and I like it with sourdough bread.
And you have a recipe for a sourdough starter in the book.
I do. And it's really easy. So I'm going to show you guys the soup. It turned out just beautiful.
But I've got a few questions in the chat, and there's a lot of people that are saying they're ordered, are going to order or did order. Thank you. Order now. Don't wait. Just do it now. The link is clickable. Why wait? You know you want it, and it really helps out a sister. Okay, so there is a couple of questions. Akani says she can't wait to get the book. Marlene wants to know, do you have any scrappy recipes for the white part of the pomegranate? I'd love to know how to use that because it's known for its anti-aging benefits.
Yeah, so I have a pomegranate peel powder in the book that you can make tea out of. The one thing you have to be careful, which I talk about in the book with pomegranate peel, is it can make you go to the bathroom. So you don't want to be like ingesting a whole bunch of pomegranate peel at once. So just be diligent about it. But yes, if you can scrub it clean and then dehydrate it, you can make a powder and then make a tea. Really delicious.
Nice.
Spoon, and I'm gonna lower this so you guys can see the soup. I'm gonna come over there. I've got you on my laptop here. I would have an easier time kind of moving this around, but the soup is just beautiful.
It looks thick and creamy.
Yeah, it's thick and creamy from that tahini. It's got the orzo, it's got white beans, grated carrot, grated pickle, that pickle juice, which creates just such a fun, unique flavor. And this is just like you saw me put this together in while I'm talking in like 20 minutes. It's just such an easy and delicious recipe. And you serve this with like a big chunk of sourdough bread. So good. When I'm making soups, I'm going to move back. Nobody needs to see this face that close.
Your bowl looks similar to mine. Do you have Costco where you live? It looks like
Yeah, Costco bowl. I'm
yeah.
going to look at this again. So other things I like to serve soup with is rice. So oftentimes I'll make like a wild rice. This has pasta in it, and then you can serve the soup over rice. So delicious. But I'm a huge soup fan. And really, soups are great for volume eating, which you talk about a lot, because you're consuming such a large volume of food for so little calories. I have a whole soup chapter. I have a salad chapter, I have a bowl chapter, I have a pasta chapter, I have a main chapter, but I have a whole soup chapter. So if you're a soup fan, you got to get the book. This is one of my favorites. It's a raid the fridge noodle soup. So you can add like basically whatever toppings you want, vermicelli noodles. I make this amazing broth I tried to really challenge myself with this book and get away from using too much coconut milk, because I find as vegans, we can like eat a ton of coconut milk in every kind of creamy sauce. And so it uses soy milk for the base of the broth, which is incredible. Soy milk is super high in protein and delicious. So another fun there.
Okay, question from Susanna. Does Carleigh have any tips for improving the longevity of avocados? It's so frustrating to lose one and have to put it in food waste. And I'm curious, can you do anything with the peel of an avocado or the pit?
So avocados are a tough one. I feel like you get them and they have like mere hours where they're ripe. I don't necessarily have a tip for extending the life of an avocado, but again, what I like to do is scoop out the flesh of the avocado, mash it until it's almost like a guac consistency, then take a parchment lined baking sheet, put it in mounds, put it in your freezer, and then take those mounds and put it in a freezer bag. And when you thaw that, it will literally be like fresh avocados. So there's a tip for the skins and the pit. Not edible, but I have heard that storing your mashed avocado in the fridge, like if you make guacamole with the pit, it will extend the life of it. I've also heard that putting lemon juice over the surface can do the same thing. For the skins, the only thing I've heard that you can do, and I haven't tried it myself, but I've watched a lot of videos because I was planning on doing it, is you can boil them and make a natural dye. So like people will, and strangely enough, avocado skins create purple colored dye. So you can create purple colored clothing. So if you have like a white cotton t-shirt, look this up. Don't take my advice on dyeing things because I don't know too much about it. But that's one way to preserve the avocado skins.
Wow, this is very cool. This almost, I feel like you should teach a course in a university about this. So many people. Let's see. Marley says it looks amazing. I'm going to order. Clark says, are the recipes oil free? Because when I watch her social media, it's not always. She did say that most of them are, and the ones that aren't, she gives options for.
I had so much support from the whole food plant-based oil-free community. People who are oil-free love my first book, so I did not want to compromise on the second and add a bunch of oil, even though I do cook with oil. I just am in a culinary exploration period, and I find oil can add some oomph to food. However, I don't think you need it. So all of the recipes in the book, barring I think one has puff pastry, I have like puff pastry pockets, which obviously vegan puff pastry is going to have oil. They're all oil-free optional. So
that's awesome. Thank you. Nancy, hey, Nancy, when are you coming on the show? She says, is your pot La Crusette?
No. It's like I think the brand is Masterclass, and I have people all over. I saw a Reddit post of people searching for this pot, but you can't find it online. But if you go to like Winners or Marshalls, Winners in Canada, Marshalls, Home Sense, Home Goods, that's where you'll probably find a pot like this. Although I cannot guarantee that like the nonstick surface is like the safest or whichever else. However, the size is beautiful. Great for making huge soups like we did today.
Wow. Well, Carleigh, this is amazing. Lorna said she ordered the book on October 5th. She loves the other one and is patiently waiting for this one. It's just a couple more weeks, guys. So get it now. And Kimberly ordered the book too. Well, you're incredible and you're so kind and you're so down to earth and adorable. And I wish you I feel like it's gonna, I mean, why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be?
We'll see.
It's so unique. It's so unique,
Thank you. Thank you, Chef AJ. And I cannot wait for your book. If you guys are on Amazon now, you might as well order both because
Put it in your cart because if the price changes in your favor, Amazon always acknowledges it.
yeah, it matches the price. So it has the pre-order price guaranteed.
You asked me what my favorite book was in my book, so I have to ask you the same thing. And the question is for your first book and your second book.
Oh my goodness. The first book, the lasagna. I think the lasagna special. It's delicious. It's what I would make for somebody who is not vegan. The second book is also pasta. I have this lemon peel pesto recipe, and it takes you take the lemon peel off with like a potato peeler to avoid the pith, and you blend it with soaked cashews or sunflower seeds, nutritional yeast, garlic, and then you put this luscious kind of Alfredo sauce over your pasta of choice. I am a huge lemon fan, and it's just unreal.
Nice. And don't forget when you order the book, there's also a link to get those bonuses. And there's some really good ones. Carleigh, so great spending time with you. Thank you so much.
This was amazing, amazing, amazing as usual. And yes, everybody go order Chef AJ's book too. Thank you. I'm so grateful that you had me on.
Yeah, it's so great because you gave me so much time. Because when you think about it, like we watch you a lot, but for just minutes at a time, and I can see like it's different when you have to talk for a long time or like especially do a live appearance. It takes
Yeah,
a lot of energy.
absolutely. But I'm so grateful. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Come back tomorrow for another amazing plant-based person who has a new book, Dr. Neil Barton.
Woo!
Yeah, he's great too. It's called The Power Foods Diet. Lots of wonderful books coming out, guys, and we so appreciate your support. So tomorrow the show is noon. Take care, Carleigh. Nice to see you.